Your husband left 3 hours ago. With the nurse. With my money. And you're staying here to watch me die." Those were the first words I heard when I walked into my in-laws' house on Thanksgiving morning. Not hello. Not happy Thanksgiving. Just that. Good evening. Wing Commander Sarah Mitchell here. And I'm about to tell you about the day I discovered my husband of 6 years had abandoned me with his dying stepfather, stolen 47,000 pounds, and run off with a care nurse he'd been sleeping with for 8 months. But here's what neither my husband nor his stepfather knew. I wasn't just a betrayed wife. I was a decorated RAF officer who'd spent 12 years in military police investigations. My husband thought he'd covered his tracks. His stepfather thought I'd be too emotional to think straight. They were both catastrophically wrong. Because by the time Thanksgiving dinner should have been served, I'd uncovered a fraud scheme, contacted the authorities, and set in motion a chain of events that would send my husband to prison and expose his stepfather's final, desperate act of revenge against his own family. This is that story. And I promise you, every twist makes the last one look tame. Stay with me. Because what I found in that house over the next 72 hours will shock you. Let me take you back to that morning. I'm Wing Commander Sarah Mitchell. At the time, I'd just returned from a 6-month deployment in Poland, NATO training exercises. My husband, James Caldwell, had been living in England, supposedly caring for his stepfather, Robert, who had terminal cancer. Stage 4. Maybe 2 months left. I landed at Heathrow at 5 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. Took the train to Reading, then a taxi to Robert's estate in the countryside. Beautiful place. 12 acres. Georgian manor house. The kind of property that's been in families for generations. I walked in with my kit bag at 9:30 a.m., expecting to see James. Expecting turkey prep. Expecting family. Instead, I found Robert Caldwell in his bed, oxygen mask on, eyes sharp as razors, and absolutely furious. "Where's James?" I asked. Robert laughed. Bitter, wheezing sound. "Gone. Left at 6 this morning. Took the nurse, Clara. Took 47,000 pounds from my safe. And left you here to watch me die alone." I stood there, still in uniform, trying to process what he'd just said. "James wouldn't." "Your husband," Robert interrupted, "has been sleeping with my care nurse for 8 months. I have photographs. I have bank statements. I have text messages. And this morning, they cleaned out my emergency fund and disappeared." He pushed a folder toward me with a trembling hand. "Here's the evidence. Not that it matters now. You're stuck here with a dying man and your husband's probably halfway to Spain by now." I opened the folder. And that's when I realized this Thanksgiving was about to become the most satisfying day of my entire life. Because what Robert didn't know, what James definitely didn't know, was that I wasn't just an RAF officer. I was RAF police. Criminal investigations. Fraud. Theft. I'd spent 12 years tracking down military personnel who thought they could steal and run. And my husband had just made the biggest mistake of his miserable life. Let me tell you what was in that folder. Because this is where it gets interesting. Photographs. James and Clara, the nurse, kissing in a car park. Holding hands at a restaurant. Leaving a hotel together at 2 a.m. Bank statements. 47,000 pounds withdrawn from Robert's safe over the past 3 weeks. Small amounts. £2,000 here. 5,000 pounds there. All signed for by James as medical expenses. Text messages. Printed screenshots of James and Clara planning their escape. Actual words. "Once the old man dies, we'll have enough to start over in Malaga." And here's the kicker. James had power of attorney over Robert's medical decisions and finances while I was deployed. He'd been systematically draining Robert's accounts for months. Robert stared at me from his bed. I gave him power of attorney because my own son doesn't visit. Because James was supposed to be family. And he robbed me. I closed the folder slowly, looked at Robert, and said something that made his eyes go wide. "Robert, I'm going to get your money back. All of it. And I'm going to make sure James goes to prison. But I need you to trust me." "Can you do that?" He studied my face. then nodded once. Good, I said. Because what James doesn't know is that I'm RAF police. And I've just spent 6 months working with Interpol on cross-border financial crimes. Robert's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. You're not going to cry? I'll cry later, I said. Right now, I'm going to work. And that's exactly what I did. Here's what I did over Thanksgiving weekend while James thought he was safe. Hour 1. I called my commanding officer. Explained the situation. Got emergency leave extended and permission to coordinate with civilian authorities. Hour 2. I contacted the Serious Fraud Office. Explained that a power of attorney holder had stolen £47,000 from a vulnerable adult and fled the country. They opened a case immediately. Hour 3. I called HMRC. Reported the withdrawals as suspected tax evasion and money laundering. Because James hadn't declared any of it. Hour 4. I contacted Interpol. Put out an alert for James Caldwell and Clara Brennan crossing borders with undeclared cash. Then I did something James never expected. I accessed his laptop. The one he'd left behind because he was in such a hurry to run. And what I found made everything so much worse for him. James hadn't just stolen from Robert. He'd been stealing from me. Remember that 6-month deployment? James had access to our joint account. He'd transferred £12,000 from our savings to a separate account under his name only. Money I'd saved for a house deposit. He'd stolen from his dying stepfather. And he'd stolen from his deployed wife. I sat there at Robert's kitchen table, laptop open, evidence mounting, and I didn't feel sad. I felt cold, focused, military precision kicking in. Robert called from his bedroom. Find anything? Everything, I called back. And here's where it gets really satisfying. Day 2. Thanksgiving Friday. 3 p.m. I'm sitting with Robert. He's actually looking better, probably because he's got entertainment now when my phone rings. UK Border Force. Mrs. Caldwell? This is Officer Davies, Border Force at Dover. We've detained your husband and a Clara Brennan attempting to board a ferry to Calais. They're carrying £38,000 in cash. Undeclared. I closed my eyes. Smiled. Officer Davies, my husband is currently under investigation by the Serious Fraud Office for theft from a vulnerable adult. He has no legal access to that money. I'm RAF police. I can be there in 2 hours with full documentation.
We'll hold them, he said.
I hung up, looked at Robert. They caught him at Dover. He's in custody. Robert actually laughed. Proper laugh, even though it turned into coughing. The idiot tried to take a ferry? With that much cash? Criminals aren't usually smart, I said. That's why we catch them. I drove to Dover. Brought all the evidence. The photographs. The bank statements. The text messages. Robert's medical records proving James had power of attorney. When I walked into the Border Force holding room, James went white. Sarah, I can explain. James, I said calmly, you're under arrest for theft, fraud, abuse of power of attorney, and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Clara, the nurse, started crying. He said it was his money. He said his stepfather wanted him to have it. Did you help him access the safe? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Then you're an accessory, I said. Congratulations. Border Force called the police. James and Clara were formally arrested. The money was seized as evidence. And I drove back to Robert's house with the most satisfying feeling I'd had in years. I got back to Robert's house at 9 p.m. on Friday night. He was still awake, sitting up in bed, oxygen off for the first time in days. Well, he asked. Both arrested. Money seized. The Serious Fraud Office is building a case. HMRC is investigating. James will likely face 3 to 5 years. Robert nodded slowly. Then, I need to tell you something. I sat down. James isn't my stepson, he said quietly. He's my biological son. I blinked. What? I had an affair 40 years ago. James's mother, my secretary, got pregnant. I paid her off, set up a trust for the boy. Never acknowledged him publicly. When my wife died 5 years ago, I tried to make amends. Let him into my life. Gave him power of attorney. Thought I could fix the past.
He looked at me.
I was wrong. You can't fix betrayal by enabling it. I sat there, processing this. Does James know?
Yes.
He's known for 20 years. That's why he hates me. That's why he stole from me. He thought he was owed. Robert pulled out another folder. Thinner this time. This is my actual will. Not the one James knows about. In the real one, I've left everything to charity. Except one thing. He handed me the folder. The house. This house. I'm leaving it to you. I stared at him. Robert, you're the only person who treated me like family. You came home from deployment to spend Thanksgiving with an old man. You didn't have to. James never did. Not once. His eyes were sharp. Clear. You saved my money. Exposed my son's fraud. And you didn't leave me to die alone. That's worth more than he'll ever understand. I didn't know what to say. Robert smiled. Don't worry. You'll have to watch me for another few weeks. Doctor says I'm too stubborn to die quickly. But when I'm gone, this place is yours. That Thanksgiving, I didn't eat turkey. I sat with a dying man and played chess. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Robert passed away 6 weeks later. January 14th, peaceful. At home. I was with him. The will was read. James, my soon-to-be ex-husband, showed up in handcuffs, on temporary release for the reading. His face when the solicitor read out, "The house and grounds go to Sarah Mitchell," was worth every second of the previous year. He started shouting, "That's my inheritance." She manipulated him. The solicitor calmly explained that Robert had updated the will 2 years before I came into the picture. Long before James had power of attorney. Long before the theft. James was escorted out. He was sentenced 3 months later to 4 years for fraud, theft, and abuse of position of trust. Clara got 18 months as an accessory. I divorced James while he was in prison. Took back my maiden name, Mitchell. And the house, Robert's estate? I turned it into something Robert would have loved. A rehabilitation center for military veterans with PTSD. We house 12 veterans at a time. Full support. Therapy. Job training. It's called Caldwell House. Named after Robert. Not James. Last month, one of our residents, a former Royal Marine, got his first civilian job in 10 years. He stood in the same kitchen where I'd planned James's arrest and said, "This place saved my life." I thought about Robert, about that Thanksgiving, about how the worst day of my life became the catalyst for something good. That's not revenge. That's transformation. Here's what I want you to remember. When someone betrays you, when they steal from you, abandon you, underestimate you, the worst thing you can do is collapse. The best thing you can do? Get cold. Get focused. Get evidence. James thought I'd be too heartbroken to think straight. He thought I'd cry and wait for him to come back. He didn't know I was RAF police. He didn't know I'd spent 12 years investigating fraud. He thought betrayal would break me. Instead, it gave me clarity. And Robert, a man who'd made terrible mistakes, who'd abandoned his son, who'd tried to buy redemption too late, he got something at the end that money can't buy. He got to die knowing someone cared. Not because of inheritance. Not because of obligation. Just because. So, if someone abandons you on Thanksgiving, if they steal from you, betray you, leave you with their mess, remember this. The person who underestimates you has already lost. They just don't know it yet. Until next time, this is Wing Commander Sarah Mitchell reminding you. Betrayal reveals character. Yours and theirs. Make sure yours is the one that wins.